I'm Jordan Jackson, and this is my final exam. Why is introspection reliable? Well, because when we try to understand ourselves just by thinking about our own thoughts and feelings, our hidden biases can really mess with our perception. Plus, a lot of what's going on around us and in our minds happens without us even being aware of it. And common sense isn't always enough because when we think of common sense, it's really what we're based on off of learning, like what we learned over time, and that can change anytime. So, what are neurotransmitters? You can think of neurotransmitters as like tiny chemical messengers in your brain and nervous system. They're how one brain cell talks to another brain cell. Now, about the human brain model, it's a complex organ that controls everything we do, like our behavior, emotions, thoughts, really everything. And it's divided into different areas. Each has its own special thing, like decision making, problem solving, and planning. For example, the frontal lobe helps with decision making, and the occipital lobe deals with how we see. Understand these parts work together and within the science of psychology by explaining why we act, feel, and think the way we do is like the key to understanding and treating mental health. Heredity and environment affects the development through our life. Well, throughout life, the genes we inherit give us a foundation from the beginning of life, and our environment and our experiences and our surroundings really shapes how those genes are expressed and then how we develop. Major milestones of physical development starts like in your infancy stage when you're first learn how to roll, sit, crawl, and walk. Until your toddlerhood, you're 1 through 3 years old, you can learn how to run and jump. In your early childhood, when you're 3 years through 5 years old, you get better at like drawing and learning more. What are the stages of sleep? There are four main stages of sleep. When you're first going to sleep, there's NREM, stage one. NREM stands for non-rapid eye movement. NREM, stage one. This is like a light sleep, right when you're about to drift off. You're not fully out yet, and you might still get woken up easily. And when you're in NREM stage two, you're in a more solid sleep. Your heart rate and your body temperature starts to decrease, and your brain begins to produce slower waves. In NREM stage three, this is the deepest stage of sleep. It's hard to wake somebody up from this stage, so you could probably call their name, like yell, and they might get woken up, of course, but you know. And also in this stage, this is where your body does a lot of physical restoration. So like after a workout, this is when your muscles begin to heal and grow back stronger. And in the final stage is REM, like rapid eye movement. This is where your dreams happen. So your brain is very active during this stage, and it's like your body is paralyzed. How do sleep, perception, sensory, and consciousness connect to one another in sleep? When you're wide awake, your consciousness is on, like fully on, and your perception of everything around you is sharp. You can see, hear, and feel things. But when you're starting to fall asleep, your level of consciousness changes. You become less aware of your surroundings, and as you go through different sleeping stages, your perception of like the outside world fades. And when you're in REM sleep stage, rapid eye movement, like when you dream, your consciousness of the real world, your brain creates its own world. That's where you're dreaming. And your perception is now focused on those bizarre experiences. Sleep itself is how we perceive things when we are awake. It helps our brain process information and consolidate memories. So like a good night's sleep can actually make our perception sharper and our thinking clearer when we're conscious. Types of conditioning. Okay, we have operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is basically like a way of learning where we change our behaviors based on the consequences that follow. So like if we do something, we get a reward. We're more likely to do that same thing to try to get a reward again. But if we do something to get punished, then we most likely won't do that. Do whatever we did again. So it's like basically learning from the outcomes of our actions. And observational learning is just learning by watching others. So like we see what they do, and when we see what happens to them, and we learn what happens to them without even doing it ourselves. So that's basically monkey see, monkey do, and it support classical conditioning. It can support classical conditioning by like if we see someone get scared by something like a loud noise, we might also be scared by that noise, even though nothing bad has ever personally happened to us. It's like fearing something just by watching somebody else. In general, how does memory work? In general, basically, memory works in 3 steps. First, your brain encodes the information. It takes like what you see, hear, and learn in turns like it formats it so your brain can understand it. Second, it stores the information. And third, when you need to remember something, your brain retrieves that stored information. How can you improve your memory? You can improve your memory by like really focusing when you're learning something new and try to organize the information in a way that makes sense to you. And you shouldn't try to cram everything or try to learn everything at once. You want to avoid cramming. And you can also use memory tricks like mnemonics or acronyms. You can practice, go over the information, try to visualize it in your mind, and relate to things you already know. What does memory and sleep have in common? So memory and sleep are actually really connected to each other. Your brain uses sleep to process and organize memories during all stages of sleep, but like especially the deep sleep and REM sleep stages, your brain takes the information you've learned during the day and moves it to like a short-term to long-term storage. You get rid of stuff it doesn't think of as like important. So getting enough sleep actually helps you learn better and remember things more effectively. How does the brain decide which memories to store and which to discard? So like I previously just said, your brain isn't going to remember every single detail every day. So it prioritizes what to keep based on like a few things. If it's more important than something else, or is it tied to any strong emotions, or is it something you like to use in practical situations? Your brain is more likely to store it. Also, if you practice repeat something a lot, your brain figures it's important and just makes those memories stronger. How are mental disorders diagnosed? Mental disorders aren't usually diagnosed with just one simple test. Doctors and psychologists typically have to use interviews where they talk to the person and combine that with psychological tests. So they also do physical checkups to rule out any other medical reasons for why that person might be experiencing that. So to make sure everyone's on the same page, are standardized guidelines for diagnosing types of mental health conditions, and like DSM-5, TR, and ICD-11. It's really like a professional evaluation that looks at a lot of different information, not just one thing that goes with that, based off of one test. And what are the major mental disorders? So from the DSM-5, the major mental disorders are, one of them is MDD, which is major depressive disorder, which is more than just feeling sad. It's more of a persistent low mood and low of interest and not trying to interact with, society or go out in public. Autism is like a developmental condition that can affect social interaction and communication. And schizophrenia is like a serious mental illness that can affect the person's ability to think, feel, and behave clearly. Schizophrenia like causes hallucinations or like people talk to people that's not really there. This is about types of identification. True or false? Sex and sexuality are the same thing. It's false. Sex is about the body you're born in, like your chromosomes and your hormones. You can have like mutation, but like you can have more testosterone than you would be on some type of intersex. But it's false for this one. Sex is about the body you're born in and your chromosomes and your hormones. Sexuality is about who you're attracted to and how you express yourself intimately. They're different things. True or false? Identity is what someone identifies as. Yet the biology of them is their sex they were born with. This is true. Sex is the body you're born with, and identity is like gender identity. It's how you feel inside and who you know yourself to be. Your identity can be the same as your sex at birth, or it can be different. How do heredity and environment affect personality? So how does your personality develop? Well, it's a combination of what you're born with. Your heredity, those natural tendencies you get from your family, and your environment, like all the experiences and people around you that shape how you grow, like I explained previously. These things like work together to make you who you are. How do psychologists use the term personality? Well, when psychologists talk about personality, they mean the unique way you think, feel, and act. So things that make you different from everyone else. It's those consistent patterns in your behavior and your emotions that really define your individual personality. As we discussed, our personalities are shaped by what we're born and what we go through. And one common thing that we deal with is stressors. Think of a stressor as like anything that gives you stress, like a tough test, a fight with a friend, or even just feeling worried about something. What's stressful for you might not be a big deal for someone else, but it can really depend on the situation or how you handle it, which ties back to your personality. What are some types of stressors? Some types of stressors, like I said before, is like it can be financial, losing money, academic, like tough tests, or fight with a friend, which is social life. What is prejudice and what causes it? Okay, so like prejudice is having a negative feeling or a bad attitude towards a group of people because of unfair stereotype. So like it can come from what we learn or the people, like the environment, people that grew up around and what they were taught. And or how we just tend to a group of people in our minds. What can be done about this to deal with prejudice and fighting between groups of people? The best thing to do is to help people from different groups to get to know each other and work together on things that they both care about. When people do that, they start to understand each other better and be nicer to each other. So what is behavior therapy? Behavior therapy is a type of therapy that focuses on changing the things people do. like their visible behaviors. It uses learning principles like helping people face their fears through exposure to that fear, managing rewards and consequences, and or teaching new skills. What role do operant principles play in behavior therapy? Behavior therapy uses operant conditioning to teach helpful behaviors by rewarding them, like a positive reinforcement, and to reduce unweighted behaviors by using things like taking away privileges, negative punishment, or other methods that can manage the consequences. To do with what effects do natural, physical, and social environments have on us humans? So the world around us, which is nature, buildings, and our friends and family, really changes how we act and feel. If it's like too loud or crowded, or when we're with certain people, it affects our mood and how we behave. So like you can be awkward or dry in conversations or even frustrated. What effect are humans having on the natural environment? So there's a lot of things that happens with the natural environment just because of what we're doing and how we move on as a species. So like I know one thing that's one effect which is pollution, which is bad. Having Antarctica lose ice, climate changing, and really pollution, cutting down trees, and things that lead to climate change. Psychology can help us understand why we do this and how to get better at taking care of our planet. And these are the references. Thank you.